Welcome back to Nick Lenz's movie review, episode number 78. This I'm reviewing the 8th James Bond film, Live and Let Die, released in 1973. You can see by the cover, it's Roger Moore. Yep, Roger Moore. Yes, the third official person to take up name James Bond. Yep, he took it up basically after Sean Connery declined to reprise the role for the sequel. Yep, this film basically still has M, Moneypenny, Q, still for the same actors, no change there. You won't see any change for M until I think it's 4 year. No, it's not 4 years only. I think it's Viewed to a Kill. It's like toward the end of this particular era. And yeah, and Q basically is still here, but Q is actually not in this film. Nope, Q is not in this film. This is by far the first and only film. This is first of 3 films Q was not featured in. The other 2 being Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. I have heard there's a couple theories of reasons of why he was not in the film. 1, he's not in the book, and 2, the actor was unavailable for the role. So basically, the Q stuff went to Moneypenny. Yep, Moneypenny. The movie doesn't start off featuring Bond in the opening title sequence. Nope. Well, not the pre-title sequence. Nope. It's just, various MI6 agents get killed. Like, one gets killed in New York, one gets killed in New Orleans. The one who gets killed in New Orleans is basically stabbed by I think like a priest. And he basically has a coffin put on him and he just disappears. The one who gets killed in the Caribbean gets killed by a snake bite. Yeah. Yeah, so, and of course, later to the title sequence, which is a very good song. Yep. Who did this song for this one? This one was done by Paul McCarthy. Yep. This song is really good, and it's one of the few Bond songs I've actually heard on the radio. Yeah, the other one being View to a Kill and The Spy Who Loved Me. Don't hear any other ones on the radio, but this is actually one of the very few of that. I have to get past the old title sequence. Oh, I should point out that one video viewer I saw for this particular film, he referred to the plot as simply this: James Bond versus black people. Yeah, because all the villains are all black. Yep, and it was basically Bond's only attempt to black exploitation. Yep. Oh yeah, and one of the villains' henchmen, basically one of the women that Bond sleeps in the movie, is a black woman. Yeah, first of 2 times in the Roger Moore era, basically he sleeps with somebody who's basically black. The next time this one happened until View to a Kill, the final Roger Moore film. In this one, he beds like 3 women. Yep, 3. First is a French agent, basically, where the agent is basically very casual. It's like, okay, open up, like, boom, there's Bond in bed. And you have M show up as Bungalow. Yeah, his apartment. First time the thing has been seen since the first film. Yeah, as for why the way it looks it does, no idea. Eric, a lot of times, basically, when they show Bond's home, it's very inconsistent. I mean, last time you barely got a chance to see it that much. Like, you always have like one room. This one's like, oh, you see a bedroom, and of course Bond and Moneypenny hiding the French agent from M. Show off his new gadget, like the special watch he gets. Yeah, anybody know, and this was pointed out though in Die Another Day, where every Bond film, Bond gets pretty much a new watch. Yeah, because of Lego gadgets. This one has like a magnet and he's got a saw with it. Yep, a saw. So, given the thing, and then eventually it goes away, and of course it's a brief scene, and then Bond goes first to New Orleans, runs to the guy again, doesn't get stabbed, but of course in the same parade, the funeral parade from the beginning of the film. Oh yeah, he goes to Harlem first. He runs into Felix Leiter. Yep, Felix Leiter comes back from the last film, though played by a different actor this time. Yes. By the way, the actor who plays this movie is the first of 2 actors who plays in more than one. This is David Henderson. He would actually reprise the role of Felix Leiter in License to Kill, which actually, believe it or not, takes elements from the Live and Let Die novel, and puts it in the action film itself. I should point out, this film basically is an adaptation of the second novel of the series. We also have appearance by Quirrell Jr. Even though that the book was released, this should be the original Quirrell, not the second one. But yeah, it's interesting though, both Moore's first film and Connor's first film features a character named Quirrell. Differences between the two of them, aside from the fact that they're black, Quirrell Jr. is a lot thinner, and he's bald. Quirrell Sr. is a guy who's basically overweight, and he was a fisherman. Yep. Yep. And when they introduced this woman in the film, the one with the afro hair, yeah, she refers to basically her hotel as Miss Mine, even though she really isn't. Yeah, her name is Rosie Carver, and she is an agent who works the main villain in the movie, Doc Kananga, aka Mr. Big. Oh, I should point out that this woman has done barely anything. I mean, she's done like a few films since then. Not much. Yeah. My only guess is the reason why she was in this film because she was known for being blaxploitation films anyways. But, yeah. We also get a chance around this period of time to introduce to the main Bond girl of the film, Solitaire, played by Jane Seymour. This is probably by far her first major film role. And here's the neat thing about this lady. Believe it or not. Unlike all the other previous Bond girls, she has actually had a very successful career after this. She was on TV for like years. One of my mother's favorite shows watching was basically Quincy MD. She's a star of that show. She has a successful TV career after this. Not much for movies, but at least she's had a successful career. She's the first Bond girl to actually do that. Gotta give high praise for that. Yep. And she's basically a tarot card reader and sort of a psychic. Yep. When Bond manager meets her, he kind of tricks her to having sex with him by pulling out cards to like, oh, we become lovers, and then they have sex, basically take away her virginity. I should point out though, Jane Seymour was 22 when this film was released. Currently, she's pushing 60, so that's pretty good for her age. Though her most recent film appearance after this film, like what was in the film, I think it was Wedding Crashers. I think it was. It was a clip I saw of this when she played a MILF, where she's basically trying to seduce Owen Wilson. Wilson is a guy, I think he's supposed to be in his 30s, and Jane Seymour is in her, at this point, probably a lot older. But yeah, Jane Seymour. Yeah. Now, Mr. Big is played by a guy who I've seen in like one other thing, Yaphet Kotto. Great villain. Great actor. Yeah, I actually did see him in something else besides this. He was actually in, believe it or not, a show called Homicide: Life on the Street. Yeah, it's a cop show from the 90s. And it's a very, let's just say, how should I put this? It's a very straightforward police procedural show without having characters in relationships. Yeah, he's by far like, probably like the only character who appears in like every episode. He doesn't miss an episode. He appeared in the film that kind of concluded the series. Yeah. And we also have a guy called Teehee. Yes, Teehee. A guy who's got a pincer for a hand. It's explained in the film how he got that he apparently got it from an alligator biting off his hand. Yep, that's the reason why he has it. There's an old white guy named Whisper. He's called that because he only could talk via whisper. He doesn't really appear very much in the movie. He appears first time we see him, he's just giving me a drink to Bond in his hotel room. Next time we see him is basically with, well, Tananga. Shows up now and doesn't do very much, just on the couch. And he's defeated pretty easily, but not going to do like a torpedo. Like, well, it looks like a makeshift like missile. And that's the last you see of him. Yeah, character. He's probably far the most useless henchman I've ever seen. And here's something interesting though. Unlike other villains in other fiction, who gets angry at their henchmen for basically failing, Whisper doesn't get yelled at all, which is quite unusual. Yep. We also have Baron Samedi in the film, a guy who's basically the light to see on screen. Because he was so interesting, and Jeffrey, what's his last name? Jeffrey Holder, he does a fantastic job playing him. And I should point out, this guy is from Voodoo lore, so yeah, because the movie deals with voodoo, so why not do the most famous person voodoo, Baron Samedi? A guy who wears a skull face makeup. Yeah. Bond goes to various places in the movie. First, he goes to New Orleans, New York. Oh, yeah, and apparently he goes to a jazz joint. He apparently sits in a bar, gets turned around to meet Mr. Big, who was Dr. Kananga. Yeah, very obvious prosthetic makeup. Yeah. Those of you thinking, what the heck is Dr. Kananga's plan? Basically become the world's richest drug dealer. Yep, that is pretty much the reason why. The reasoning for his stuff. Yes. Sell drugs, even though in the novels he worked for Smirsh. Yeah, that simply was his job, working for Smirsh. That's what he did in novels. In the film, he's just a drug dealer. I don't care about villains who half the time are freaking drug dealers because they're not interesting. Here's the thing. He'll be the last villain who's a drug dealer until the film, which, believe it or not, the guy who plays David Harris comes back and License to Kill, one of the main villains is a freaking drug dealer. And it's a very similar plot. Yeah, eventually Bond does go to Dr. Kananga's country, which apparently he's dictator, and apparently he has a seat on the UN Council. Somehow, despite the fact he's a tiny island country. And somehow he sits in the council, and he's dictator. Makes no sense. Yep. We also have a famous double-decker bus chase in the movie. And eventually we have Bond basically just, going to Dr. Kananga's base with Solitaire. And usually, a lot of time in these movies, Solitaire is, these women usually someone Bond rescue. She's with Bond like the whole film. I mean, they only separate briefly when she's taken back to Kananga briefly. But she's not exactly rescued by Bond. She's taken care at the same time as him. Which is quite unusual. It's not usually like this. Not even the previous films is like this. I think the only other film that did this was You Only Live Twice. Because a lot of the time when they have these final big battles, usually the Bond girl is usually held captive, and then Bond has to rescue her. This one, nope. She actually is not held captive. And they eventually, after... How they defeat Dr. Kananga is the most bizarre way. Yeah, this introduced basically this air pellet, which apparently can blow up sharks. I heard this thing is not really real. So they apparently use a dummy for this. He stuffs this thing in the guy's mouth. He flows up to the ceiling, and it explodes. Normally, a woman sees something like this, it would traumatize them. Solitaire apparently has no problem with this guy dying because how much of a terrible person he is. Oh yeah, and how does Bond deal with Baron Samedi? Throw him in a box full of snakes. Yep. He just basically, first they think this thing that comes out of the ground when it gets the island, think that's Baron Samedi, so he decides to shoot it. Nope, it's not him. And then, of course, the real Baron Samedi shows up. Bond just basically throws him into a box of snakes, and that's why I see him until the end of the movie. Yeah, then Bond stops Kananga pretty easily with the exploding thing. They get out, place blows up like usual. They take a train somewhere. I'm not sure. Okay, they're on an island. They must have taken a plane. They must have taken a plane to Europe. Yeah, they just basically cut ahead right after this. Yeah, then okay, we have Teehee appears on board. He comes on board, fights Bond. It's actually the second time in the Bond series you actually have a fight scene on a train. The next time this happened will not be until Spy basically 2 films after this one. Yep. And Teehee is defeated via his own claw. Basically, Bond traps him, basically claw in the windowsill, clips the thing, throws the guy out the window, and then throws his claw after him. And then Bond proceeds to do get it on with Solitaire, and then the film ends with Baron Samedi, somehow alive at the end of the movie, sitting in the back of the train, laughing. How the heck he's alive? Never explained. I would say for this particular film, the villains, the henchmen are basically Teehee and Baron Samedi, the most interesting henchmen in quite some time. The henchmen they had in the last movie were basically not interesting at all, Diamond Survivor. In the case of Majestic Service, they were okay. I'd say this is probably one of the most interesting group of, let's just say, group of villains for Bond movie, I would probably say, since I could say Goldfinger. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the previous few films before this, I mean, the last one only had one interesting henchman. That was Irma Bunt. Yeah. And in You Live Twice, they didn't have any. They only even the muscular bodyguard for Blofeld, he was not interesting at all. I would probably say the last time we had more like one interesting henchman at the top of my head was before this film. I don't think it was anybody. Yeah, but Rosie Carver. Yeah, she's apparently a double agent, and she gets killed by Baron Samedi's trap. Yeah, by far the most stupidest double agent I have ever seen. Heck, even Calvin Dyson pointed out that Rosie Carver is so stupid. She's by far one of the worst characters in the entire Bond series. But the film was actually pretty good, and it's actually the third film that Guy Hamilton directed. The next film, Remember the Golden Gun, is his last film he directed. Yep. Also pointed out that Harry Saltzman, one of the producers of the series, the guy who's been a producer since the first film, this is his second to last film he ever produced. Because after the next film, Curt Broccoli takes over as sole producer up until the 1990s. Yep. But yeah, this is also the first of 7 films of Roger Moore. 7. Which, to date, that is the highest amount for a Bond act to appear in a movie. Though Dan Craig is going to appear in his 5th Bond film. First one to actually appear in 5 since, well, Roger Moore. Yep. I definitely say it's a good film. It's got good action. Also this film introduces the character Sheriff J.W. Pepper. Who else comes back in the next movie for some reason? No idea why. It's like maybe Guy Hamilton liked the character, so he brought him back for the sequel for no reason at all. He's basically a bigot sheriff who basically just, arrests this henchman who works for Mr. Big. He basically pats him down, takes his gun, and he sees Bond. It's like, okay, so he thinks he's like a criminal, and then he's explained by one of his deputies, like, nope, he's not a criminal. He's a British spy. Well, he's a British agent. It's like, okay, fine. Yep. And Sheridan Pepper, basically, in this film, he actually does work. In the next film, it's like, okay. Yeah, the next film, basically, he has no reason to appear in the next film at all. Yeah. But this film is actually pretty good. It's a good start for Roger Moore films, but it's only his first film. Does it make mistakes in this movie? Not really. No, not much. I mean, at least in the case when they made this film, at least people who made the film actually did not make any major mistakes. Like they had made some mistakes in the first James Bond film, Doc No. Roger Moore, basically, despite it being his first film, he doesn't do that bad of a job for his first film. He's basically very competent, and at least he's also by far having the only Bond film he's ever been in. Actually, is the first of 2 I can think of where they had the final battle sequence where he also doesn't have to rescue the Bond girl of the film. Yeah. And basically Solitaire, in my opinion, I do agree with this. She's one of the best Bond girls the whole series. That could probably explain the reason why she was basically very successful after this particular film. Yeah. That could explain why. Yep. This haven't get into much movies, but at least she's had a successful career. Yeah, the first one to do this. I would say that after this, next Bond girl I can think of who actually has had a successful career after this, well, Grace Jones basically still sings. Not much of a acting career, but she still had a career, so she's basically immune to it. I would probably say after this, I think next Bond girl who actually has had a career after this. Off the top of my head, could be Grace Jones. Oh, I forgot to mention the actress who played Plenty O'Toole from last film, Lana Wood. She's the older sister of Natalie Wood. You're probably thinking, who the heck is Natalie Wood? She was an actress. and also happened to be one of the victims of infamous serial killer Charles Manson. Yep, she was killed by Charles Manson because the guy was paranoid that, okay, he wanted to kill these so many people, thinking that the world might end at some point. Yeah, I saw a documentary about this. The guy was freaking paranoid, Charles Manson. Yeah, she was a victim of Charles Manson. I'm sure that Lana Wood still hates the guy after all these years for killing her sister. Yep. But yeah. Now, in the case of the actor who played Barry Samedi, who actually is by far really good character, a really good actor. Let's see. I think he's done some stuff after this film. He was in 1982 film Annie. He was a good amount of films after this, not a lot. I mean, after this film, he didn't do a lot of films, but I think he pretty much stuck to like TV. But at least made popular with Bond fans, so at least get to reprise his character. I don't think he ever did. No, I don't think he ever did. I mean, people did love his. I think he's just a singer. Yeah, I think he's pretty much stuck to basically Broadway acting for the last several years. Yeah, at least he's had some of a career, but at least he's a good character. Teehee, I haven't seen much of anything outside of this, but at least he's quite interesting about Bond villain. He's probably by far the first Bond villain to have a prosthetic. Yeah, but he's not the first Bond villain to be with his own gimmick. I know Oddjob was with his own gimmick. So was Red Grant. Let's see, his own tool anyways. Let's see. Aside from those two, definitely not Thunderball. No, Thunderball had no memorable. The only person who was memorable in that film was Fiona Volpe. Yep. And Live and Let Die. And You Only Live Twice. Not exactly a lot of memorable hench people in that movie. And the last one was just basically. I would say he's probably the first one to actually suffer his own device. Like, that was basically his downfall. Basically, first one since, at this point in time, since Oddjob. Yep. So yeah, that's particularly it. I mean, not a lot of stuff else you can say about this particular film. I mean, it's not exactly a film people tend to talk about when people talk about James Bond films. Yes, I have heard that Roger Moore was on TV prior to doing this film called The Saint. Yep, I have never seen The Saint. Also, apparently that they decided to switch back to the previous thing they were using for the gunboat sequence, which was the 4.5 ratio from widescreen to that, because in widescreen for years. Though eventually they go back to whites. Oh, also, fun fact: the gunboat sequence used in this movie actually would have two ever filmed. The next one they wouldn't film until View to a Kill, because remember the Going Gun up until Octopussy, all the same exact basically gunboat sequence, because they never did a new one after this one until View to a Kill. Yep. But it was a pretty good time sequence. I mean, unlike they say in the first unlike the first three James Bond films, which did not feature the particular James Bond in the gunboat sequence, this one did. Yeah. Also, they did it for Lazenby as well, but he was kind of like a big head, and he basically had bent on the one knee and basically finally had him disappear. Moore basically have very good title sequence for him. Alright? Yeah. So yeah, that's particularly it for this particular review. Stay tuned for two more reviews I'm going to do today. The other one, of course, being a review of Baruto. The other one being a review of the newest chapter of Attack on Titan. Yep, but to this next view. Bye.